Hello and welcome. It's the Holy Hour podcast, the All Cure podcast, the usually bi-weekly podcast, but in the month of March, we're just cranking them out here. We really wanted to make sure that Andy Anderson episode got out as soon as possible. So thanks to Donald and Chaz for talking with me quickly and a little more lo-fi on the Andy front. But we hope you enjoyed that. We're going to keep backtracking a bit. Thanks for the 100th episode. Very grateful and thankful to everybody that listened and contributed for the first 100 episodes. We hope a whole nother 100 episodes are around the corner. But enough celebration and glorification. Let's move on. Before we started all that madness, we were in the era of 2004, the self-titled album by The Cure called The Cure. And Donald and Chaz and myself, if you haven't listened to that episode yet, I recommend pausing it and going back. We were a bit torn on that album. Not our favorite Cure album, as much as it pained at least me to say. So whenever that happens, we like to throw it out there to you guys, and we got a few contributions and some other thoughts, and that's what this episode's going to be about. So another perspective, and a lot of it syncs up still, but at the same time, some variation on opinions on the 2004 album. And we thought we'd also sprinkle it in with a good phone call from our trusty friend Coulter, where we're going to talk about some of those elusive B-sides and outtakes, because one of the main arguments is maybe the best songs weren't chosen for that album. It was, it'll come up again that Ross Robinson and Robert Smith even were kind of torn on which songs to go on the album. Different opinions there, and I think every listener probably has a slightly different variation of the preferred set list in their head. So we're going to talk about the B-sides and outtakes with Coulter. But before all that, we got a pretty cool contribution sent in from Matt, and he takes a slightly different perspective on addressing the 2004 self-titled album. So let's hear what Matt has to say to get things rolling.
Hello, Gavin and everybody. Hope everything's going well for you guys. And I want to do something a little bit different for my self-titled recollections, autopsy, whatever you want to call it. I'm sure it's the one thing that we're all kind of on a united front about. And I mean that even more than most fans, agreeing that Disintegration is the best or Pornography is the best, Kiss Me. I think we can all rally behind that this is just flat out the worst thing they ever did. And, it's just not going to be a very fun thing to dissect all that. So instead, what I want to talk about is how, to me, it kind of symbolized The Cure coming back into the pop culture a little bit. What I mean by that is there were times in 2004 where you could actually turn on the radio and hear End of the World. I even saw the video for Alt End on MTV2 of all things, which blew my mind because I was too young to really see the videos or hear them on the radio when they were contemporary. So for me, it was kind of a little thrill to see our boys out there. And not only that, really, you couldn't avoid it. I mean, you'd go to Walmart, Best Buy, any kind of those big box stores, and going to the music section at the time, you would see tons and tons of copies of this album. I mean, it was everywhere. I remember having to hunt down the Join the Dots box set, and it's funny. I think that actually was the first thing this is kind of a side note, but I think that's the first thing I ever bought on Amazon in 04, 05. But it has nothing to do with this, but still, yeah, going to these stores and seeing that self-titled album get a good amount of prominence was cool. It was good to see, and then, flash forward 4 years later when 413 came out, and sadly, to me, I felt like that was another one I kind of had to hunt down. It was not as prominent, sadly, even though that's my probably third favorite record by them. But yeah, just having them kind of out in public again was really cool. And I know Spin Magazine had a lot of features on it. a lot of their rankings and, a lot of bullshit magazines like that, Rolling Stone, it really seemed that in '04 they were kind of back in the public eye. So for that, love it or hate it, something about the right combination of Ross Robinson or the singles or something just kind of catapulted them back in. We talked about Blood Flowers being kind of, it seemed like it was a fan-only album, and I said in my kind of micro review that there were no singles for it, there was no video, and I was 15, 16, how the hell was I gonna really hear about it? And we, my friends and I just saw that cover and we're like, what the fuck is this? I don't know if I could swear on the podcast, but literally that was my reaction, like, what is this thing? So being able to hear singles and videos and things like that, it is kind of important in a way, just to get that exposure or to keep it, or to, grow an audience. So for that, I'm going to say that the '04 self-titled album was a kind of important artifact in the group's history. For better or for worse, it brought them up. And just closing it out, I had a lot of friends who bought that record after never buying a Cure record. It's insane to me when you think about it. I somehow went mostly the whole year without hearing the album in full. I didn't buy it. I had, at that point, I definitely had Kiss Me, and Standing on a Beach. And I even went to Curiosa, and I still own the album. So maybe that was a good thing. I don't know if that was a blessing, but yeah, my friends had it. Isn't that insane? Like, I couldn't convince anybody to go buy 413 Dream, let alone, Faith or, Head on the Door. But for some reason, it was just a big seller, I guess. So that's going to be, in my opinion, the long-lasting legacy of self-titled. So hope everyone's doing well. Love the show, and see you next album.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt. Great perspective to put focus on the rebirth or resurgence of The Cure in 2004. And that it just can't get past the idea of that opening up so many doors to a lot of new fans and really just keeping them out there in the world, especially after what would have been the inevitable, obvious fade out from Blood Flowers. Yeah, good point. And also, we received a very cool segment at the 0 hour from Victor, a super cool listener that I've been talking to on the side for a little bit now. We actually received his origin tale too that I can't wait to share with you guys, but I'm waiting to compile it with other origin tales so we can have a full episode of people's stories of how they got into The Cure. We haven't had those in a while, so send those in if you are interested, any length of time. Give us your story of how you got into The Cure. But back on track, Victor sent in a segment of his opinions on the self-titled album, and Victor quickly takes us back down off of our semi-positive cloud that Matt tried to put the silver lining on, and dares to ask, was the bad boy and Chaz and myself perhaps too light on the self-titled album? Maybe it is just completely the worst thing they've ever recorded. Let's hear what he has to say.
Hey there, Gavin. It's Victor from Minneapolis. I want to send this out. It's regarding the 2004 self-titled album. So with this album, I'm going to start by saying that I think they accomplished something that they were not quite able to do with Pornography, for instance. And I mean it. And since this is the first time actually that I send my thoughts out on any album to you, I'm going to start by saying that Pornography, it's really not one of my favorite albums. Definitely not in the top 5 for me, and I guess somewhere there in the top 10. That would be accurate. So I've read somewhere, and maybe I guess you have to have read or heard at some point Robert talking about Pornography and mentioning something about when they were working on it, that they basically wanted to create something that was unlistenable. And I think that's what they accomplished with the self-titled album. Not in a good way. I think it's unlistenable. And I mean, it's the only album that I don't like. I don't like this album, and it's also the only album I've heard a couple. Well, not a couple, more than a couple of your album reviews or album episodes in the podcast, and I think this is the first one in which you've had better things to say about it than I do. And even to this day, I cannot really listen to it through. I don't even like The End of the World, for instance. The production and the whole album, I think, is really bad. And like you said, also in that episode, the vocals are terrible. But I don't think it's just that, because when I've heard songs from this album live that I've seen in some of the concerts I've been around, I've attended to, I don't think they are much better live, stripped from the Robinson production or whatever. I still think I don't like them. I even revisited the album after your episode, and yeah, I think it's impossible to listen to it beginning to end. And I mean, especially when it starts out with Lost and Labyrinth, like out of the gates. My God. And Lost, it's a shame, and I think you touched on that in the episode. Like, The Cure had a streak of such good openers, such good album openers, and then you get Lost. I don't know. I guess it works in the sense that it represents what the album's gonna be like, or I don't know. But it's a shame, and that prevents me from liking it or from being able to bear with it too long. I actually think many of the songs around this era are actually really good. I mean, or B-sides are usually very good. We all know that, right? But also in this case, I'm not talking only about the B-sides, also the unreleased tracks. I like them much more than most of the album songs, or than a lot of them. But when you look at, I don't know, things like Few Hours After This or The Exploding Boy, they're so good, and they could be in the album. You could argue that you could take this song out and include these or that, or yeah. Even in some of the Wish era B-sides and all that, yeah, you could argue that. The thing is that, yeah, they are so much better, I think, than many of those songs on the album. While on the others, I could say they are on par with what you have on Wish, or on par with what you have on Head on the Door, or Kiss Me, Kiss Me. In this case, I think they're just much better. I don't know. Based on what I just said, and some of the B-sides and some of the other unreleased tracks from this era, I thought it would be fun to kind of list together what I would have included as my preferred self-titled album, or from this era. Well, let's see what you guys think about it. I don't know. I think I would have liked to have the album open with a song like Your God is Fear. I think it's a really good song. I like that one a lot. I would have an extended intro. I mean, it's not a short intro, but I would like, I don't know, probably like a minute and a half instrumental before you hit the vocals, or something like that. But that one, I think, would be a good opener. Then song number 2, I would include Before 3. And yeah, it's an okay song, I don't know, but I would have it just for it to be Before 3, before track 3. So that would be my second song. My third song, I would have I Don't Know What's Going On. And that one, by the way, would be my first choice for a single. The lyrics could use some work, right? But I think it has a pop sensibility. Has a little catchy part. Which is one of the things that this album, in my opinion, lacks a lot of. If you can do something that's hard or I don't know, the whatever sound they wanted to achieve with it, but have some hooks or something, which I think this album really lacks. So that would be my third song and my choice for the first single, actually. Then following that, I would have Out.End or whatever that the name is. It's an okay song. I don't love it. I've heard it live also. It's an okay. I wouldn't rule it out. I would follow that one up with Anniversary, which I kind of like. That's one of the better songs, I think, in the album. And I would close side A with one of the unreleased tracks that I think they played live around that era. The one of A Boy I Never Knew. That would be a nice closer for the first side. Now, side B, I would open with This Morning, another one of those B-sides. I like that one also. My second track on side B would be Taking Off. And that, by the way, would be my second single. And the B-side that I would include for that single would be, you probably heard it also, is somewhere there in YouTube and all that, the Dragon Hunters song. Some song they made for a French TV show or something, but if you listen to it, it's basically the same song as Taking Off. So that's why I would have that one as the B-side to Taking Off. Following Taking Off, the third song I would have is Fake, also one of the B-sides. Pretty good song. I like those. I like everything I'm including. I like. Then it'll be Strum, one of those unreleased tracks. Also, Please Come Home, another one of those unreleased tracks. And then I would end the album with Going Nowhere, which I think was the closing song in some of the releases, but maybe not all of them. I know in the CD I used to have when they came out. I think that was the closer. I would have to check, but I think in my version that was the closing one. And then I have songs like that would be my album, but I love songs like Truth, Goodness, and Beauty, Why Can't I Be Me, and End of the World. Those, in my opinion, could be B-sides to those singles. Maybe some other single that you could put there, and then this would be a B-side. And then there's the songs that I would like: Lost, Labyrinth, I remember Never, Us or Them. I think The Promise is the last one. Those I would just disappear from the face of the earth. I would just burn them. I really cannot take those songs. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you. And let me know your thoughts or what you think of of the songs and all that. So I hope to hear from you guys. And that's it. Take care. Bye bye.
All right, thanks so much, Victor. Great to finally have you on the show, and lots of good points there. And, I think a lot of people will agree with you on this self-titled album. It's usually at the bottom of the list, but if there is one thing that can save the perspective of this self-titled album, it seems to be these B-sides and outtakes that everyone keeps subtly mentioning and that you added to your revised track listing. So without further ado, I think it's time to check out what these B-sides and outtakes are. So let's go ahead and head to the phones now and call up Coulter out in Arizona. It's only 2 hours back, you dinguses. It's not 3. Come on. Get your schedule straight. And we're going to talk about some B-sides and outtakes now. Let's see if we can save this self-titled album. Bring, 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 bring. All right, so here we are. I'm here with Coulter again. We're going to talk about these B-sides. How's it going, Coulter?
Great. I'm glad to be back.
Cool. Thanks so much for joining us and becoming our expert B-side guy, it seems like.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I appreciate you've hooked me up numerous times in the past, and once again with some of these rarities, outtakes. I don't even know if you'd count all these as B-sides that we're going to address for this self-titled album, but there's some cool gems floating around out there. So thanks for digging them up and unearthing them for me, and hopefully some people out there.
No problem.
But yeah, it's weird because maybe just because it was starting to get later in the years, or because I wasn't so crazy about this album, but there was a few of these that I really hadn't heard. I felt like I've caught most of them in passing, but some of them were a lot later. Even like Strum and a few of these that we're going to talk about are ones that I'm not quite sure where they even fit into the grand scheme of recording sessions or what, but there's some cool rare ones out there, so I think people might hear one or two that they're not super familiar with, and we'll also try to tell you where you can track them down. But thought we'd do a little track by track, but before all that, we've been talking a lot about this self-titled album. I hope I didn't come off too negative with everybody else in the last episode, but a lot of complaints, but hopefully some praise with this. But we thought we would check with Coulter here and see right off the bat, well, how's this album fit with you? Where you at with it these days?
This album's kind of hit or miss. I think you have to be in a particular mood for it, but I think I've said in the past when I was getting into them, this was probably like the last one that I was able to listen the whole way through and appreciate, because it was, like right off the bat with Lost, you're kind of like, what? It's totally different than anything else that they've done. And so, yeah, it definitely was like the last one for me. And I initially didn't like it. And it's still, it's probably my least favorite of all of them. But I think at times a certain song might be stuck in my head or apply to something I'm going through or whatever. But yeah, it's just one of those albums I think you have to be in the mood for.
Yeah, for sure. And it is weird when you really kind of... It's funny how these later ones, because there are such huge gaps between all the albums, the fade between one era into another seems pretty gradual in a sense, or
that's
so
true,
long even, but it's like it's strange that when you really bunch them all together and look at them, it's like it really stands out, for better and worse, but at the same time too, it is just that it's its own thing, which is kind of cool really, but at the same time, you can also look at it as it does really stand out because it is completely different, like you're saying, than the other ones. And you kind of do have to just be in that mood where you're ready to, it's like, whatever, I'm going to put on that self-titled album. But it's always been my go-to when I'm so sick of things, because I know that it's probably gotten the least amount of listens. So when I want to throw on a Cure album and hopefully get something new out of it, it's kind of my go-to. But yeah, how about 2004? Forget your timeline exactly too, but where were you at in 2004 with this? Were you
let's see, in 2004. Yeah, I didn't even know the Cure. I wish I had that backstory like you and so many others, where it was, whether it was Disintegration or even Kiss Me or before. I think it was like 2000, 2008 that my friend had gotten me into the Cure, and so.
Right.
But 2004 for me. I was just starting high school. I think I graduated in 06. I'd have to do the math, right? Okay. 4 years, so something like that. Starting high school, and I don't even remember what I was listening to. I didn't get into. I was really big on music, but I didn't start getting into my own stuff until I think like my senior year or a little bit after. It was really what whatever my dad had or burned for me: Beatles, Pink Floyd, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I'm sure that's how it works for a lot of people. You kind of take in whatever you're given, and then.
Yeah, for sure.
Much later, you start to just go off on your own, and that's what I found happening with me. But anticipating this album, I can't imagine, because the album before it came out in '96. No, Bloodflowers. Bloodflowers came out in 2000. Yeah. And
4 years,
you're waiting 4 years, and just to see where they're going to go from there, and then this is just totally something different.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always strange, and we touch on that at the tail end of the last episode there, but just that idea of the 4 year gaps are understandable by that point in their career that they were doing that, you know, before it got ridiculously long, before this upcoming album, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Better than 11 years or whatever we're at now. But but even the 4 years, it's so strange just because it is such a long gap. And we talked about how just like, not only is it 4 years from the last album, but, you know, you take that 4 years to get to that album, then another 4 years, so it's really 8 years of cushion around this one album. And you know, I'd kind of said in passing that, like, you know, especially an album like this, if it had just been sandwiched in real quick 1 year after another, old school Cure style, I really wouldn't be as hard on it even, you know, just like whatever, it's their one rock album. But like, you know what I mean? If they just had like Blood Flowers, this, and then 413 Dream, or just kind of like bam, 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 you know, it's just kind of, okay, cool. But like when you're like, this is it? This is what I get for 4 years to listen to? It just kind of hurts a little bit more. But yeah, you know. So.
That's a good point, because it's kind of like you had 4 years. Is this you spending all of those 4 years on this? Or how long of a break did they take before they got back to any sort of
I
recording?
think they only even recorded this one in particular like a year. It was a fairly short process. Like, while Mood Swings, I think
it was all live,
every minute
right?
of that. But yeah, so... But,
yeah, you guys probably already talked about this in the episode. Like, I haven't heard the episode. Obviously, we've talked about this since it, you know, just hasn't come out yet. You're still working on that. But a lot of the recording, from what I've read, it was like all live in the studio.
Yeah, slightly different process for this one, where they really did just kind of knock it out in the studio live, all in the same room, and Ross Robinson just kind of in there with them, coaching them.
Throwing stuff at him.
Lots of jokes going on with that in the last episode. But yeah, just how about that angle for you? Did you have any knowledge of Ross Robinson going into when you found out about this album, even like backtracking, even like were you aware of new metal and all that? There.
A little bit. I didn't know who until, I mean, like, as I was getting into the Cure, I was just really listening to the album, seeing which ones I gravitated towards. I didn't really think about who their producer was or things like that until later. And then it just once I found out that that's who it was, and that the same guy from Korn and those kinds of bands, it was kind of like, okay, I guess this makes sense that this was the direction or this kind of sound, you know?
Yeah.
Sure.
Huh. Yeah, it's an interesting choice for sure, but
no, for sure. I mean, like, and I think he also did Limp Bizkit, right? Where it's like,
the whole
let's get the guy who does Limp Bizkit. That's a good
Limp
idea.
Bizkit.
Slipknot.
It's so ridiculous. Yeah, but you know, like we said, he's kind of the easy target, and something that we brought up talking and preparing for this episode too is the idea that he ultimately, you know, I always wanted to blame Ross Robinson full on for the harder, heavy Cure album. That, you know, I'm just like, you know, just because it's not really my style mostly, but at the same time, I don't think it really works the best for the band. But he said he had his own track listing in the end, and ultimately liked the more like mopier and some of those sadder songs. But Robert actually was the one that fought more to have the consistent heavy track listing that would become the album. So I'm kind of like, what? But then in researching all this, it kind of made more sense that if they were going to do it, you know, do it all the way kind of deal, you know. So it's kind of like Ross Robinson pulled them into this heavy world, but then kind of was backtracking, knowing that better Cure is when he just chills the fuck out a little bit,
exactly.
You know.
And it's like you said, maybe they kind of committed to it. They're like, well, we're going to go with this sound or this particular
why have
music
it,
and
you know?
stuff. Yeah. And maybe Robert wanted to do something different, and it is what it is. But yeah, no, it's like you were saying. I have that quote pulled up. We don't have to read it, but basically, just like you were saying, you know, he wanted the darker songs, and I think the track listing said he had like 8, but a lot of those darker songs are like, you know, those 7-minute, 8-minute type songs. So it would be like Blood Flowers, where it's under 10 songs, but you know, it's a good amount of time.
It's really heavy, and I wonder, I mean, it would definitely change it just based on the outtakes and B-sides that we're going to talk about in the album. I mean, you really could make at least 3 completely different albums with those songs, you know?
You could even make it one of those kind of combo albums like Kiss Me, where you've got a little bit of everything, and that would have, you know, maybe would have appealed to the masses a little bit more.
Yeah, who knows? I don't know. Maybe that's a good segue to dive into these songs then, because I think a lot of people have made the argument that why wasn't this on there? Why isn't this? So, like, as much as the revisionist history kind of thing pops up, maybe this one there is some argument to be made that some of these songs are better or should have just been on the album or could have fleshed it out a little better. So, who knows? But so yeah, what do you say? Should we pick some of these songs apart and see what you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, and as I was telling you before we hit record here, I feel a little bad because we're just going randomly in the order that we sent the email to each other and stuff. Right. And it kind of just happened to be the first few I wasn't too crazy about. So I just want to warn the listeners, I'm not being totally negative Gavin again here. I do warm up to some of these songs, but just out of chance, some of them not so much. Not so much the first one, though. Truth, Goodness, and Beauty is a pretty cool song, and that's one I know a lot of people are pretty on board with, too. And like a lot of these, they were on the vinyl. Some version, would you say the Japan one had a...
I think the Japan one had it.
Okay, so some of the CDs I noticed had a few, but my CD only had 11 tracks on it, but then the vinyl has 4 of these on there, which kind of makes a crazy long album. But yeah, so this one I think popped up on a lot of stuff. Was it an official B-side ever on anything?
I don't think so. No? Well, I feel like the only B-sides were The End of the World was really the only actual single.
True. I just pulled out the CD singles. I had End of the World had This Morning and Fake, and
and those are on the Japanese one. Well, okay, so that's off of The End of the World. I think Alt End had, it had
Why Can't I Be
Me? Yeah, Why Can't I Be Me? And Your God Is Fear.
Yeah.
And so it's at a time too where it's hard to tell.
Too. Same ones.
Yeah, some of them have the same. That's the thing is, it's not like the old days where it was like it was an actual vinyl and they had the B-sides. It just
some wild mood swing shit going on here. Where one version would have this and that, So anyway, some of these, I guess it's safe to call these B-sides and outtakes. I don't really know, but they're just extra songs. Anyway, back to Truth. Yeah, exactly. Truth, Goodness, and Beauty. I really love how it starts out. I think it's got a really cool, catchy melody, and something I griped about the album on is that it's just not catchy on a lot of it. I feel like it does lose some of the steam as it goes for some reason. I just get that kind of feeling I have with a lot of the songs, but for the most part it is really a really great song and definitely should have been on the album. There's at least 4 songs I think I would swap this out for on the actual album, but so I'm pretty on board with it. The vocals are cool. I don't know, it just kind of seemed like it also kind of faded quickly. I got real excited for it when we decided we're going to do this, and then by the end of today or yesterday's listens, when I was listening through again, I was kind of like, I don't know, I already feel like the song's kind of wearing off on me. How do you feel about it?
No, I kind of agree with you. I like the song a lot, especially when I first discovered it, but it's one of those ones where I think you kind of forget it's tucked away, and then when maybe it comes on shuffle or something, you're like, oh yeah, I'll give it a listen, and it's like, this is a pretty good song. But at the beginning, really, it has that build up, right? And then Robert has that long kind of, not a yell, I guess, but he holds out that note and it kind of gets loud and then goes into the song. But it's like you said, that's cool, and then the build up, and then it just kind of doesn't necessarily go anywhere.
It almost just needs a really catchy chorus or something. It starts out so good and then just doesn't really have that big hook in the middle somewhere. I almost wonder if he just taken some song, I Don't Know What's Going On, we had mentioned in the last episode, where it's kind of a nothing verse to that song, and then the chorus is really catchy. There should have been a little bit more Beatlesy chopping up of songs in pieces maybe or something, and you can make some of these a little catchier or something, but I feel like it just kind of flounders by the end, He's just and I realized this is the one Donald kept referencing, some song where Robert just keeps singing about how ugly he is, or how I'm like, what are you talking about? While listening to these again, I'm like, oh, I think this was the one he was listening to online. So it's a pretty cool song. Would you put it on the album? You think it should have been on there?
I would have taken out half of the songs on the album for this one, or if not more. I like this one a lot, but it's like you said, it's good. It's not necessarily that catchy, but I would definitely it would take the place of something else.
Yeah, a solid deep cut at least. So
Yeah.
cool. Moving on to Fake is the one where he's talking about how he cannot fly, unfortunately.
That's right.
Over and over. This one I'm not too keen on it. He's just kind of saying stuff and none of it stuck with me. I didn't really like this one too much. I like that it wasn't aggressive, which was a lot of my problem with the regular album, where it's not just him freaking out and yelling by the end, but
Yeah.
but it's still just kind of doesn't do anything for me. And I get my Cure ADD for some reason, which I never had with any past albums, where I just kind of lose focus halfway through the song. I'm just like, yeah, what? Oh, it's still going, and I can't recite it or sing it or get it stuck in my head or anything. So I just feel like it's just not that great of a song, But
yeah.
I don't know. How do you feel on that one?
It's an okay song. At times I like it more than some days, I guess. Some days it's a really good song, and other days I'm like, this is not great. It honestly just depends. But I think it's another one of those ones where I want to say it's the chorus where it goes always said you know me, but you don't know me at all. So if the lyrics, if you're having a rough day or rough something going on, I think it'd be a good song that applies to you. But for the most part, just an okay song. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Another one that's on the vinyl, but not on the album. And so Why Can't I Be Me? You want to kick this one off? So this is a confusing one. What do you think of this one?
It is, but honestly, I really like this. It's kind of like the anti Why Can't I Be You?
Yeah.
It's the opposite. Why Can't I Be Myself? And that other song, Why Can't I Be You, is a great hit, and it's very poppy and upbeat, and this is a little bit more reflective of this album, where it's just aggressive and he's just upset, why can't I be who I am? Why can't I act a certain way? But it does get kind of confusing, and it's kind of
I'm not too keen on this one either. But I like the idea of doing the spin and reference back to the song. But
at the very end too, where it says "simply elegant," I think that was kind of cool. Nod to the other
I don't really get otherwise what the connection is, other than just finding himself or whatever. But at the same time, it's just kind of the whole point of Why Can't I Be You isn't even that it's just a fun
just
song,
for fun. Yeah, it's just for fun.
There's just
exactly, and this is taking it serious. Exactly. This kills the fun. And it's one of those ones where it's aggressive like the rest of the album. It's kind of you have to be in that aggressive mood. That just
I think that's why I'm not into it. And I guess it kind of sometimes when he's singing Why Can't I Be You live, he'll kind of shout it by the end of it, and it's almost the way he's singing the chorus on this one. But it's he took the one worst part of Why Can't I Be You to slightly vocally reference even.
You made it its own little song.
Yeah, I just made a whole song based out of it. So I was just kind of all right. Yeah, and it just goes back to the yelling, which I spent way too long complaining about in the last episode, so I'll spare everybody this time.
Right.
But moving forward, I'll start feeling more positive, I guess. And Your God is Fear is a cool one. I'm down with this one, I think.
I am too. I like this one a lot.
Yeah, and it's I don't know, it's a mopier one, but it's and he does start the yelling by the end, but it seems more appropriate. And I get it, it builds up well. I like that kind of nasty bass guitar, and it's pretty cool. I think it captures a few of these where it captures the whole kind of feel of this album and what they were going for, but in a way better way than a lot of the songs did. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily a sound of the Cure that I love, but they did it right on these songs, where it's still kind of long and he's still kind of screaming by the end, but at least I buy it more
works.
on some of these songs. Yeah.
And it goes with the theme of the song, which, Robert, as far as I know, my understanding is he's atheist. I don't think he believes in God. I could be wrong, and that's this whole thing where, I think his interpretation or the reason he wrote this song was that, he thinks everyone who believes in God, this is just my opinion, is it's all based off of fear. And that you just think that all this is all there is, and you have to live your life a certain way, which is, and I think that's interesting.
I kind of got that too. I didn't really
builds
look
well, like you said. And it flows. It's one of those songs it's aggressive too, but like you said, I think this one does a good job of of actually accomplishing what it sets out to do and flowing and not going still in the middle,
dragging,
or whatever you want to
yeah,
say.
some of those just like go down these weird avenues and it just drags and then it'll pop into some other section and you're just like, what? And one of the little footnotes I had was like, ends just in time with a smiley face. So
that's and they just drag on and you're like, yeah, this says what it needs to and it's done. And I just want to say, like, my opinion of this song is, and that's the good thing about The Cure, right, is you can interpret it in different ways and you can apply it to it. And that's one thing that's really gravitated me to this band and why I love them, is that, I grew up Christian, and and when I got older, my dad started to have different beliefs, and he anyways, I'll try to like wrap this up or keep it short, but my dad left the church that we were part of as I was getting older, and my parents got divorced over religious indifferences, and now my dad's very much like anti the church that his family grew up being. And so this song to me is just almost like me reflecting on my dad and going like, hey, your God is fear, and the way that you're being anti other people and forcing your ways and saying other people are wrong. I don't know, and that's just like I said, that's my opinion. And that's one thing that's good. I think that's what makes a good Cure song.
Totally, yeah, it makes total sense, and yeah, I definitely got that vibe too, that it's in that vein. And even like Us or Them, referencing back to that, we had talked about that, and like how he had kind of in passing, but in his kind of vague Robert way, had mentioned it was, all like 2004 Bush era stuff, and it was kind of the most political that a lot of their songs would ever be, and kind of then other people were saying, well, maybe it's more about religion than actual like war on terrorism and stuff.
But they don't come out and say, he never really says like, oh, this song is definitely about this. I mean, some songs will say what he was thinking when he was writing it. So, but I will say in the 2016 tour, this was the song I went and used I'm like, come on, this 3 hours. This is the song I decided, okay, I'm going to the restroom finally.
Yeah.
So I got to go sometime.
Yeah, for sure.
I like this song, but it's not one of my favorites on this album.
Yeah.
I think it's, I don't know. It's like I think it's the angriest one in my honest opinion.
He's freaking out pretty hard on that one. I definitely will take Your God is Fear over that. That's why I kind of also jotted. It was like a better one of that. You could have swapped this one out and I would have been way happier.
Would have been just fine, yeah.
Yeah, I think it covers all the political, religious territory that we need to in a Cure song. But, cool. So yeah, moving on to the next one. Not a studio outtake by any means, but so kind of out of context. But The Boy I Never Knew is kind of a elusive, almost Bigfoot kind of Cure song that has been speculated on over the years. And I remember kind of first catching wind of it, maybe even like a year after this album. I felt like a lot of people just kind of said stuff social media wise, and there's not even like an official recording, right? We had kind of talked about this.
No, I think we just have like a really good live take. Would be my guess of what
because I guess they played it live a few times, and the bootleg or whatever I have of it, it's technically good. It's great performance wise, and it's really almost good. It still sounds kind of crappy MP3. But then I was joking with you. I was like, do you have one that doesn't have like this crazy screeching sound in it though? It's like this really like passionate, beautiful song. And then like the last like 30 seconds maybe just goes like the most like high pitched awful screech that keeps going all the way till after the song's even done, And
we must have the same one, and it's like somebody, and this is like the only one out there too. Somebody has like a one of those like video flight simulator, like computer game type things, and it's like quiet, but that's the video while the song is playing, and then at the end it's like while like the plane is landing or something, it's this like high pitched schooling sound, and the song ends and it's still doing that. It's like, why would you do that? Like, maybe
how would they?
I don't know.
Am I just too much of an old fogey? I don't even know how you would like strip a bootleg audio from a video game or a flight simulator. I don't get it. How's that even work?
I don't know.
Are you saying it just sounds like a flight simulator thing? Or
no, it really is. And so you might have a copy that's like the copy that I have, and then somebody took it and like maybe put pictures of the band in the background for the video. But I'll show you sometime. I can pull up on YouTube the video that I saw, and that's exactly what that screeching is.
Yeah, mine was just some total like MP3 thing floating around out there. I never even had like a YouTube version that I took the audio from. So
I'll show you, and it'll all make sense.
But nonetheless, that being said, if we're willing to listen to this whole song and even with with a giant screech through it. It's a beautiful song and really cool, and just to me feels like a genuine Cure song of, every
this is the Cure. Like, to me,
level.
right here, this song, out of all of the takes or any material they made for this album, is like the most Cure-esque song.
Yeah, and it's just baffling for sure.
It should have all been this
the album.
yeah.
That's like, figures the one song I sincerely love out of the whole batch album and outtakes. It's the one that I don't even have a proper recording of, but it's pretty unfortunate. But yeah, it's just a really cool song. I guess technically speculated on, lyrical meaning or whatever, him singing about, not having a child, which I mean, it does pretty flat out feel like that. I can't really, it's kind of like,
yeah, exactly.
The obvious, it could never be the same. It's kind of like nobody's ever officially said anything, but you can really probably
about like his mother passing, or people speculate Bowie, things like that. And you can kind of like tell it's what it is.
Something very personal, and probably in this one, people speculate, and I guess makes sense that's why it was almost too passionate or too personal to put on the album even, and it could have been those ones that apparently Ross Robinson has on his mix, but Robert said it just wouldn't have fit. And I guess stuck in the middle of all like the heavy Cure, whatever the hell, where he's screaming. It would have stuck out. But I mean, you could definitely have peppered in a few of those more mellow ones and made like a pretty solid.
It out.
Yeah, I don't know. I would almost have built the album around this song, but I'm sure I was going for something way different than Robert, and so who am I to? But so yeah, I hope we all live long enough for the self-titled reissue to come out and we can get an official version of this, because there's got to be some kind of studio version out there somewhere.
For sure. Well, I've heard, or I've read, that this was like that they were gonna like actually do a studio version of this, and then it would have been part of like the darker 413 Dream. You know how they had like the dark album, like it was gonna be a double album.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that's true, but that's what I heard, that they would actually polish this up. And part of that. Who knows?
Yeah, I wonder if some of these could have carried over to that or what. But and I'd even heard, kind of totally off topic, with like everybody saying it could never be the same. Just put out the new song; it's gonna be on the new album and everything. And then heard some good evidence. I kind of forget what the details were now, but it was that was one of the actual 413 outtake kind of deals from the other album. So that and Step Into the Light weren't even new in 2016. They were like just ones from the extra, which totally makes sense.
If you could leave out this kind of stuff that we're talking out now, then it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Right?
It's so weird, but oh well. But any other thoughts on The Boy I Never Knew?
This is my favorite of all of like I said, all this material, this time period. And to me, obviously I agree with you. I think it's about him not having a son or child in general, but I actually have, I have my daughter, she's 2, and then I have another girl on the way in the summer. And so this song, when I listen to it, kind of makes me think of like, and I love having girls, and that's what I wanted. I just think it'd be cool to have a boy. So to me, I listen to it and I'm kind of like that, like wish I had a boy, and to be like, your heir and take over for you, I guess. So, but yeah, it's a really good song. My favorite one out of all of these.
Yeah, it is pretty sad when you really let yourself get into it, his perspective, and thought of it from that, way.
And I've always wondered why
like,
they didn't. Geez. Yeah, some of the stuff I've heard is just that, like, just constantly being on the road, or not having like the time, or feeling like maybe what's the point of bringing a kid into this world? I don't know. Like I just speculate, but
yeah, all those are genuine concerns for sure. But so that's just sad. So check that out if you're totally unaware, if nothing else. But we'll put a list of all these on the Facebook page and elsewhere out there, of course. And then some rarer ones. I feel like the Strum one might be one that somebody that just bought the singles and stuff may not have been aware of. I feel like I caught onto it way later.
Same here, because it's not one of the ones that is on, like we said, the vinyl has all of the ones that not B-sides, whatever we're calling them, but this is one that's just online only, really, and who knows if it's really called Strum or what.
Ching Chang Chong category.
Kind of that category, exactly.
Yeah, whatever the hell, these weird YouTube clips will just pop up, or
who knows where they came from.
So, Yeah, it could be like from some crazy era that's like not even
They'd be
related.
like,
But I
"Hey,
think
this was three
they're
imaginary
like,
boys," or like, "What?" But you never
yeah.
know.
So don't blame us if this is something totally different. But I felt like it got narrowed down to
It sounds like it
Strum
fits
being
though. It really
yeah.
does.
Most of them have enough of it, and
Hmm.
I felt like it starts out with a really cool riff.
Like
I'm
acoustic
trying to think if I
guitar.
can hum it, but I'm not sure I can have it in my head. I wrote "Badu da do da do do," but I don't think that's how it sounds.
Something
but
like that.
yeah, it's
Close
pretty
enough.
close. Right?
But yeah, it's like acoustic at the first, and
Um,
then it gets into it. But it's like it will be so perfect. I said too beautiful for words. It will be so perfect. I
yeah,
said, and then it kind of goes into the song. I
yeah,
like this
and it
one
feels a
though.
little more like old school Cure a
Yeah, I
bit,
agree.
like it could have been Wild Mood Swings or something, even.
I could see that.
Definitely isn't freaking out by the end or anything.
Yeah.
I think there's some acoustic, like you said, in there, which totally changes it up from a lot what's on the actual self-titled album.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, not like one that's totally stuck in your head after one listen, aren't by any means.
No,
But at the
but
same
better
time,
than half the stuff that's on the studio
yeah,
album.
exactly. That's my second note. Really, was
There
just
you go.
definitely should have been on the album.
Mhm.
Don't love it, but it's way better than most of the ones that I would have left out.
I was kind of wondering, like, strum mean, and most of the stuff, you look up, it's like to strum an instrument, to strum strings. But one of the things that I found online was like, strum is something said when there's nothing else to say in a conversation. And I was like, that sounds like something that Robert would do. And then
Yeah.
a comment somebody had about this song was, it sounds like, people, and they're in this relationship, and they're like, this is going to be, perfect, everything will be great, and then sooner or later something happens and things don't work out the way you think. And going along with the lyrics at the end of the song, it's like things can, let me see, at the very end it says, it will still be perfect, you said, too beautiful for words. And it kind of reminds me of like things happen in marriage or in a relationship, but they can get better, and nothing is going to be perfect even when you think it's gonna be.
Yeah, I like that. Makes sense.
I don't know, but good song, I think.
We had next Dragon Song, which is another one that just kind of got at one point fairly later,
Mhm.
but I'm not really even sure what the full story is on this one.
So this one
Um,
actually, it's like I want to say German cartoon. I can't remember, some cartoon
okay,
in
yeah.
Europe or something, and the Cure were asked to do it. But it's a knockoff of I want to say, is it Taking
Taking
Off? I
Off,
think,
right?
and yeah, Taking Off, and they
Yeah.
just changed the words. They're like, hey, we'll pay you money to make a song for this cartoon. They're like, hey, why don't we just take something we already have and we'll just throw in some
Yeah,
lyrics that
it's
I
gotta
make
be,
up.
right? I
Yeah.
haven't done like a total A/B listen, but like the first few listens, I was like, I mean, it sounds almost
And
exactly
it's a little
like
bit different, I
sounds
think.
almost exactly
Yeah, I
like
think he changes it a little bit,
know?
like tempo or something, but it's Taking Off. It's
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, sure.
You could pretty much, yeah, you could definitely just sing parts of Taking Off during the breaks of this song, but it's all like just this really fast, rhythm of, lyrically and talking about dragons and shit.
Yeah.
So it is like, it totally sounds like a cartoon opening song or whatever,
Yeah.
or some kind of How to Tame Your German Dragon
There
or
you go.
something, where it's
Three.
like, so yeah, something, it's definitely rambly, but yeah, it's cool. I think I like Taking Off better, but
Mhm.
less dragon shit thrown in there. But worth checking out. And yeah, someday when I'll really get bored, I'll do like a full on strum along to both just to see how
See.
close they are. If it's, but yeah, it seems like it had to have just been. Like he hadn't recorded the vocals yet, so we'll do this for the dragon thing, and then we'll
This
also
for the
make
album.
it. Yeah,
Nope.
so, fair enough. Can't blame him for that. But cool. And not often that you get the Cure singing, about mythical creatures or anything, right?
It's true.
Gotta take advantage of those moments. Then it's kind of back to accessible B-sides with This Morning I had on the list, and that's one I think people are pretty fond of.
It's a
and
good one.
had
It's a
on
long
lot of
one.
stuff.
I want to say
Yeah,
it's like almost 8 minutes or something like that. It's almost like a Faith Part
Yeah.
2 or something, where it's that ending song that's just
hmm
a longer one.
super long. Yeah, I kind of got where it was definitely in the vein of Your God is Fear, in the sense that it's exactly the sound of this album. It feels very self-titled album for sure. better or worse with that, even, but it works again.
Yeah,
and
no, true.
builds
It
really
kind of
well,
sums up
and,
the album,
it's like,
even though the album's imperfect. It tries to, I think, sum up what the theme was.
yeah. And yeah, it's almost too much, but then again, it just ends just in time where I'm like, all right, where I'm starting to check my watch,
Well, what would you
Like,
rather have?
it's,
Would you rather have? Well, think about this. Like the U.S.
uh-huh.
pressings of the album end with what's it called? The Promise, I think, isn't it the last track?
Yeah.
But all the other ones, aside from the Japanese one that has, those other tracks,
Does it
they
end
all
with
have.
this? Okay.
Yeah, the U.S. one ends
go
with
ahead.
The Promise. The all the other ones end with Going Nowhere, which I don't know. I think Going Nowhere is a good ending to it. But I'm just saying, what would you rather have? The Promise, or would you rather have This Morning as an ending?
Yeah, I wasn't even sure if they ever had it on any of the pressings, but I had just in parentheses written this probably would have been the best closer. Like I think it would have been definitely better than The Promise.
See, and I agree with that.
Terrible.
Yeah.
I almost defended The Promise more in the last one because I
feel like you have
never
to, though.
that much more. But yeah,
Kinda.
yeah. But I mean, this captures everything that The Promise is trying to do, but in a way cooler way, where like the changes are like, cooler, like the song builds in like a cool rock way, and then it's still
just
like
different.
has some singing, and the aggression swells, but I mean it's everything, and it just
with The Promise, it's kind of
this is
like, it. Yeah, this is one.
Yeah, that's just kind of like beating a dead horse with that song. It's just like, okay, stop. But so yeah, I think this one would have been way better as a closer. Why not? But I don't know. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. I mean, I'm not crazy about it as far as just a Cure song, but at the same time, I think it has everything that they were going for and does it way better than a lot of the songs that are on the album. So, yeah, should have been on there for sure. And I guess technically was on some, but
on the vinyl, I guess.
So, yeah. So where was it on the vinyl, dude?
It's the last track on the vinyl. So basically, like the Japanese one, has like Fake, Truth, Goodness, and Beauty. It has all those ones that actually are out there.
My vinyl, I had it pulled out for the other episode, but don't have it. Yeah, they're all kind of sprinkled in weird spots, and I remember they just kind of put a few in the end there. I wasn't sure if it was this one.
I think Going Nowhere.
Going Nowhere
is technically the last song on like everywhere, all the regular CDs except for the US, and then the vinyl has This Morning after Going Nowhere.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, I feel like it has to, with this rock album, you kind of have to end it with something rocking, which I'm usually in favor of, like a nice, sad, slow song to finish it out or whatever, but I do feel like it's like you come on this rowdy journey through the whole thing of him yelling at us for an hour or whatever.
Gotta sum it
it's
up.
Like, why get all nice now here at the end? Yeah. So, but, cool, but Going Nowhere, and I think this one might be universally, or maybe it's just the company that it hangs out in, but I think this song's beautiful, and maybe as far as behind like The Boy I Never Knew that didn't officially have a recording, this is my favorite. I think this is like such a good song. It grows on me too, maybe just because I haven't killed it over the years of listening to it a billion times, but it's like, I mean, it's a kind of a cop-out to say that because it is the most like old school Cure slow song that he's singing low and not yelling, and it's everything that I normally like in a Cure song, so I of course like this one. But yeah, it's a really nice song. It's got like that fancy Roger keys going again, and I like that it's just got a nice melody and pretty chill, and yeah, I don't know. You down with it?
I am, and I agree with you with that. Out of all the ones, aside from A Boy I Never Knew, so like actually studio ones, this is probably the best one of those. And the title Going Nowhere, I think would have been maybe a better fitting for a song like The Promise, or a song that literally goes nowhere. You know what I mean? But this song.
Or the album.
Or the
title.
album could have been called Going Nowhere, and did not include this song.
Yeah, true.
But it's a good song, and I like it. Classic Cure, where it's just that darker feel to it, and kind of like that hopelessness or futility kind of feel.
That's cool. And I guess I have to call it that I totally fucked up on the Blood Flowers episode. We had the instrumental one. I guess we lumped that in there, but I didn't even realize that was the same tune at the time there.
And it sounds similar, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah,
I don't know for sure. if it really is going
I'm
nowhere.
assuming I probably just screwed up the timeline, but I almost wonder too if it was like an outtake from those that they brought in and redid
Oh,
again.
could
I
be.
mean,
Yeah.
I guess that's not totally out of the
Because it does
question
kind of
that they
sound
had it carry
like
over.
out of that era, like kind of fits a little bit.
Yeah.
But does sound like a different
Yeah,
era.
it definitely fits more on Bloodflowers than this.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it feels like it could have been a Bloodflowers song for sure. Um, yeah, it's cool. And some of the ones you hit me up with while we were preparing to do this, there's like a couple of YouTube-ish floating around variations of this song too that are worth checking out. I guess the first one you sent me was a live thing. It sounded kind of like acoustic live, but I guess it's hard to say what exactly. Did you say you figured out where it was from? Like, it just seems like a weird one for them to ever play live, but it was definitely live.
I think in the comments someone said it was like 2004 Spain, and it actually had footage, so it was live.
Oh, wow.
So it'd be cool to hear this one live.
Yeah,
this would be an interesting one to see.
Yeah, I would definitely totally be down to that. It seems like a weird choice, but that would be great to hear that live for sure. And and then on top of that, you had sent a demo one that had different vocals. Like
it was a little bit more like
like
happy,
a less
or like
finished.
not uplifting.
Yeah,
I don't know how to describe it, but it wasn't as
it was,
mopey.
Yeah.
It was also short though. It was like like maybe a minute or less. It wasn't that long.
Yeah, it kind of cuts and. So kind of got the idea rolling with some different vocals or different lyrics anyway, and then another cool one was the high vocals one where he just kind of pushed everything up an octave.
I kind of feel like that fits better with this album, where it's just a little bit more aggressive or over the top.
Yeah, it fits better, but I don't like it as much.
You don't like it as much, but in relation to this album, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
For what they were going for.
So it's kind of cool just hearing him do it that way, though, where it sounded,
sounds a little bit more like Helpless and like emphasizes the theme. But I do like the original take better. But,
yeah. Plus, there's just so much yelling with the other songs.
Take a break from it, yeah.
Yeah,
it's gonna be tired.
Let's not do it on this one too. So yeah, maybe they decided to do it that way, but. So yeah, some good variations out there too. If anybody else is out there and a fan of this song, it's worth spending a few minutes. I think all those are on YouTube, right? So, and some variation, you can find it if you find the right wording there, and we'll try to get a playlist together. But yeah, worth digging around because it's most of them are pretty good quality, where it's at least listenable, on a YouTube video. I guess in this vein too, before we go to the last official outtake, you had found some cool variations on Taking Off too. It was 2 acoustic ones, and it was kind of cool. Like the first one, I just was listening to it one last time while making a pizza tonight, and I was like, is it just straight up Robert Smith acoustic?
Doesn't it sound like that? It almost sounds like it's low? Like just him and maybe like someone with a. One of them sounds like someone's on like a tambourine or something, and then just the acoustic guitar.
Yeah, the second one was like a live acoustic, and that one definitely had like a tambourine going nuts.
That's the one I was thinking of. This other one, kind of sounds like just him, maybe.
Yeah, which is really weird. You don't really get too much solo Robert.
You really don't. It's like, how would you have gotten that from him?
Yeah, who knows? But it's cool. And yeah, that one was like kind of the same deal, but just acoustic, and it was kind of cool, and it strips it back because before even hearing that in the last episode, I was kind of knocking the album by saying there's only a couple songs that would even sound good on an acoustic guitar, and to me that's like a true test of a great song, is if you can just kind of play it on an acoustic guitar and it still sounds great. It's like definitely doesn't have to sound better, and probably wouldn't, but it just kind of strips it down, and I think when you really do strip it down like that, you see that Taking Off in particular is like one of the better songs on this album for sure. And one of my sad comments for this song on the last episode was that it's just kind of buried in this album of songs I don't like that much, so it's almost too little too late at that point. You kind of forget about it.
You're just so mad at that point. You're like, what's going on? And then this happens and you don't really appreciate it.
It is a really cool song. I've definitely, it's grown on me a lot, and then even just re-examining this album has really made me kind of focus on what a great song that is. And and it is because it is a bit of a nod or, throwback feel again, where it's, got that totally, in between days, just like having kind of feel to the acoustic guitar on it and stuff. And so I mean, a lot of it's that, but at the same time, these acoustic ones are really cool because it showcases that. And then the second one, like we're saying, is kind of like it has more of like the MTV Unplugged feel.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He even bumps the vocals down, where he sings it kind of like how when he does like Mellow Boys Don't Cry and stuff on Unplugged.
Yes, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, so it's cool where you kind of get the vibe, and they have the shakers and the tambourines going and stuff.
A
and
fun little spin on it.
But so pretty cool. I had never heard that in my life, so thank you. I don't even know what the hell that came off of. Did they do like an acoustic radio set or
That's
something?
What I would,
maybe.
Would think, but I totally agree with you in the sense that, like, if you can just play a song on acoustically and it just works and sounds good, that does make a good song. Like, can you imagine him doing just an acoustic take of like Us or Them? I mean, if you totally changed it up, I guess it could sound okay. But...
yeah, all these. So you kind of wonder again. So then I can blame Ross Robinson, man. He should have been like, let's take it down a notch, guys.
Yeah, you could have.
Don't Red Bull it up, man. Take it down a few notches. Old man Robert doesn't need to be screaming promise for 10 minutes. They just done it like some mellow version. Maybe it'd been a really cool song.
Well, and who knows if they were recording this live, how many takes he had to do of that? So were they, and it's about 10 minutes and they did 10 takes or something. They're spending... who knows how long
True.
His voice is shot.
Take like a month just to do like 3 takes of that song. But I guess the last one I had was Please Come Home, which is another kind of like strum where I'm not really sure where the hell this came from, or wouldn't be surprised if there's some other backstory where I'm totally missing on this one, but it's another one of those kind of YouTube floating around ones where I'm like, what was this song? And
yeah, exactly.
I really like it.
Me too. And it's one of those ones where I feel like Robert's like, well, this is a really good song. Okay, don't put it on the album. Just put it on the internet. People will find it. The true fans will find it. Kind of
it's like, what the fuck? So that's a surprising one where it's like, this could have totally thrown in there with like Going Nowhere and Boy I Never Knew. It's like you really do have like the core of like solid. A completely different. Yeah, I mean, or at least just taking the edge off of it in a good way. I know you wanted the album to have an edge to it,
but it's like you said, like we mentioned earlier, it could have kind of been balanced out. Like you'd have that edginess to it, but also kind of your who you are sort of deal. I did on the Fans of the Cure Facebook page. I made a little poll of like, what's your favorite rarity from the self-titled album? And this time, because I had done that in the past, and I left the option open for people to like write in, just in case there was something I didn't know about, and people would put like B-sides from a totally different era. So I had to make sure that they couldn't do it. I'm like, well, but this was one of the top ones. I think it was the top one was Please Come Home. So it sounds like people know about it and they really enjoy this one.
Oh, good. Yeah. It's it's a weird one, and even by the end, it builds in like a very self-titled way where he is kind of almost screaming again. But
it's not like over the top. It's not like super aggressive, but it's
it's like a passionate level instead of aggressive.
It works
level,
without it being like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and the lyrics are actually kind of oddly straight up for Robert Smith too, where it's like a very just like flat out like longing song. I didn't even feel like it was like, which is I mean, they're nothing like super mesmerizing, but at the same time it's just it's like kind of strange for him to just flat out have this sad love song kind of feel. It was like, okay,
because a lot of the stuff, it's kind of like a little bit vague where you're like, I wonder what he's really going for here. This is very direct where it's like, okay, this is exactly what he's going for.
Maybe that's why I hated it too.
Could be. He's like, this is too boring. Like, no, this is great.
Pulled from some like awesome literature or something. It was just like, nope, just a dumb love song. It's like, oh, cool.
He makes the decisions.
But it's actually kind of refreshing, I think, to hear just like I'm sitting at the window, kind of. I forget what the lines are exactly, but it's something about like this,
like waiting for you to come back. Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's great. It's a great song, great lyrics, even though they're very direct.
Beautiful.
Yeah, who knows why it's not on the album?
Yeah, so I mean, like we said, it's like technically can't blame him for that.
You blame him for a lot, most of it, but I guess give him a little bit of. whatever.
And like we said, by that point, you can't backtrack and say, all right, well, let's make it sound like a conventional Cure record after he's been like knocking over chairs and yelling at them and putting them through all this hell, to
Yeah, and
a certain degree. I'm sure
mhm.
Robert's probably like, well, we better just use that. That's what we did for the experiment. We didn't, they
Gotta
could have
go
made
with
a,
it. But
a mid-tempo Mopey album standing on their head. They could do that anytime.
it's true,
It's
and I
like,
think that's the thing is he wanted
uh,
something different, something that kind of like sparked his interest, wanted him to get back to making a record. It's kind of
yeah.
like lately, supposedly with them getting back to the studio now, is that like when he was doing I forget, curation or one of those things, right? He was saying all those artists kind of made him want to have that creativity and get back. And it sounded like at this time, I guess he had heard that Ross Robinson like was a fan of his, and then they got in communication, and he wanted him to produce the record. And I don't know, but it sounds like it ultimately came down to Robert. But I had sent you something, and it sounded like, and it was it was one of those Chain of Flowers articles, and it was I think it was titled like Ross Robinson is an asshole or something like that, and it talked about like how he would sit there and scream at them, and one day he like threw a candle at Roger's head, and people were in the comments were like, well, maybe this is right, Roger, because wasn't he gone by the next album, and he didn't come back until like now, I think.
We speculated on this a bit too, and I think there was definitely some tension, and maybe the Seeds were in all this, because apparently Simon and Perry definitely had some quotes of not being down with the style of recording this, and I could only imagine Roger was the same way. Yeah,
and the keyboards, because usually his keyboards are very mellow, and
the keyboards are all buried in the album anyway, barely anything. Yeah, so I could totally see it. But I mean, they played the whole tour with them and stuff after this, so it wasn't like immediately like, all right, fuck this, we're out kind of thing. So, but I mean, it could have been a seed of like, and just enough where he probably could have gotten over it and came back, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
But, something's up with Perry too, that, after all this.
He was gone after this, right? And that was it.
Yeah, but I mean, again, it was a pretty long year of touring after this. I mean, if they were really mad at each other, or he was mad at Robert for going through all this, I think it probably would have boiled before that. So there's probably other shit involved, but hard to say. But I can't imagine. Yeah, I mean, it was one of the things we kind of stumbled into talking in the last episode too. Again, was just like when you really listen to the album, it almost sounds like Jason Cooper and Robert Smith were the only two that were really into this bullshit.
I was just thinking that. I was kind of curious what Donald's take on Jason's drumming in this is, because it's a very different style than how you picture the Cure.
Yeah,
and it does sound like he's into it.
It's kind of what we boiled it down to, is that they're both playing their asses off, like better, probably even Robert. I mean, he's singing so good on these, and he's just hooting and hollering, and everything's like, damn, but it's like, same time, it's just the songs aren't good, or as good, and and it's just like, and even Jason's drumming, I don't really want to hear the Cure drum like that, but yeah,
not that it's bad. I mean, it's good, but it's not what you want to hear.
It's great,
I'll go somewhere else for that.
And he's just playing his ass off. But we got to the even point where we're saying like The Promise, we would have rather just heard the drum track,
just the drum track.
Cool,
that's it.
Yeah, it's like, screw the rest of the song. Let's just hear him rock out on drums, man, because he's nailing it. But so yeah, there's something up with all that.
For sure. Well, I'll say, as a musician, like, I know you're a musician, and on my drive home from work today, I was listening to your covers album, and you have a cover of The End of the World that's really good. That's kind of off topic, but just in case anyone hasn't checked that out.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Good stuff. But as a musician, sometimes when you're in a band, you can be friends with people, but sometimes you'll play a song, or somebody will have written a song and they really like it, and you might not. In my early 20s, I played in a band, and we only played at a couple places, but you would practice all the time. And sometimes there's songs where like one person loves it, and like I play bass, and so like sometimes the song sounds great, but the bass might be boring, and as the bass player, you're like,
right,
you don't really want to play because it's not as fun. Other aspects of it might be fun, but it's so hard to like give your all or be into it if it's not something you enjoy or it doesn't appeal to you.
Yeah, for sure. It's always, and I think there's a huge part of that, especially with Cure stuff, trying to be diplomatic about choosing the songs and stuff like that. When you have these huge bodies on each album to choose from, I'm sure a lot of votes go in that way, and it might even just be, like we were saying too, it's like usually the musicians or the songwriter in particular is like the last one to know what the best song is on the album. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, they're not gonna like the one that, you know, some cheesy pop song could be great to everybody else that hears it, but the singer's going, I don't know, I'm just making some crap up, but it, you know, it just
Right.
happens to be a really catchy song, you
Mhm.
know. And it's like, so yeah, I'm sure that's gotta be a factor, and probably like a huge reason why a lot of these weren't on there. Like we're saying, they're either too personal or too nothing at all to Robert, probably. So, or you know, could be like what you're saying with the bandmates are just kind of like, I don't know, man. You can't. I'm not even. Roger's like, I didn't even play
I
anything on
just
this
played
song. Why
one
would I
note or
vote
something.
for
Yeah, it's like I
it?
don't want to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like why would I want to vote for this song to be on the album? I'm not
Mhm.
even doing anything on this rock opera that's going on for 10 minutes or whatever.
Exactly.
So who knows?
Exactly.
I'm sure there's a lot of politics involved, but I don't even know how much the other guys in the band have a vote of the track listing by the end. You know, it's probably just Robert and whatever producer arguing over it. But
Probably.
I would like to think they have some say. You know.
You would hope so, and I feel
But,
like Robert's a pretty fair guy, but who knows? He could be like,
yeah,
"Here's the
I
track
think
listing,
so.
guys."
And I think he'd probably just feed off of whatever energy that, you know, if they really love the song, they would probably,
Yeah.
it would probably come through in the song too, and that would make him like it more. Is usually
Yeah.
how
You
band
you
stuff works
hmm
too. Or if you,
you would think so.
I guess at the top we didn't get your full on, just you know, we don't have to go song by song of the actual album too. But do you have any highlights and lowlights of the actual what was released on the self-titled album? Or
Um, I'm trying to think what I really liked when it first came, or when I first started listening to it. I really liked "Taking Off." I thought that would have been the best one for a single because it's kind of like you said, maybe a little reminiscent
yeah,
of like just like Heaven or something like that. Not as good as those, but
yeah,
kind of along those same
right,
poppy kind of. Um, I used to really like Labyrinth. I thought that one was kind of cool, where it is heavy, but I kind of like that one.
yeah,
Lately, though, I like. There are three songs towards the end, and I probably just went through one of those phases where I didn't like these songs, and now I'm trying to get an appreciation for them. And one
uh-huh.
is, I think, Never, I Don't Know What's Going On, and Alt End. And I just feel like those songs kind of tie in. Like, as I was listening to them, the lyrics almost kind of sounded like wanting out of a relationship, or like, I don't know what's going on. I don't want to, like,
Yeah,
one of them says, like, I don't want another go around, and I want this to be it. And then I just feel like
yeah,
those three kind of songs all kind of have the same theme to
yeah.
them, but
I can
I
see
don't know.
that.
Mostly it's just one day I like one song, one day is another. But
Kind of hop around.
one
Yeah.
one I will say that I'm not that big of a fan of is Anniversary. I feel like it's just kind of bland, like it just kind of very like quiet
Yeah.
and soft.
Huh.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's what Chaz and Donald were definitely. Well, Donald hated all of them, but Chaz
So
was.
yeah, there's no
I was
surprise
like,
there.
I was defending Anniversary. I was like, I kind of like that one because it felt a little more like Blood Flowersy and stuff.
It's
But
a
it
more
is,
mellow and dark, but I just felt like it was kind of
yeah,
like
it's
one
definitely
song.
boring.
Yeah,
But I would take boring at this point over
right.
the rest.
Over super angry.
But
When I was first
don't
listening to
yell at
this
me.
album, though, right? When I first listened to this album, though, my friend had made me burnt copies of all of these. You know, this was pre Spotify or those sorts of things, and the song Before Three had like a
Uh-huh.
scratch on it or something. Because at the beginning, it would make this like dun 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 dun, like it was like skipping, and then I didn't realize till later that that wasn't actually part of the song, and I was like, I kind of like that because it was what I was. It was the norm. I was
The
like,
best
I
part
grew
of
up
the
with
song.
it, yeah. And now now I know that's not what it actually is. But you know, some days I
Funny
like
how
some of
that
these
works out.
songs. Some days I don't. It's not. I don't know. It's like I said, you have to be in the
Yeah.
mood for this album, and
Yeah, and none of it's like dreadfully, like you were saying. It's just.
I don't want to
It's
say,
not,
oh,
like,
this is the
offensive
worst. Yeah, it's
or-
not offensive. It's not like, oh, this is
Yeah.
garbage. I will never listen to this. I like it, and I can appreciate it at times, but it's not be like I don't open up my okay. What am I going to listen to? Be like, oh, how about the self-titled? Like it has to be like a certain.
Yeah.
You know, you're in the mood for it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the worst thing against it really is that all the other Cure albums are so good, you know?
Yeah.
It just makes it look bad, you know? So it's
Exactly.
kind of like.
It's still a
alright.
good album. I was thinking like star ratings. Like I would give this probably like a 3, and then I mean everything else would be 4 or 5.
Yeah, off
maybe
the chart kind of
yeah.
thing,
So it's
yeah.
not like this is a good album. It's good. It's a Cure, and
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not up to par.
Cool, man. Well, I guess we'll wrap up that portion and move on to 413 is around the corner. So
Been 4
that'll be
years.
fun. Yeah, we'll see everyone in 4 years.
That's right. Is that what he did during? What is that from? I think. No, that's from the trilogy DVDs. And he's like, both times he's like, "We'll see you in 11 years." Or
yeah, it sounds about right.
That's what it feels like right
no,
now.
He literally meant that.
No, it's for real. It wasn't a joke. Yeah.
Cool. Well, stay on the line, but we'll sign off to these guys for this portion. And thanks so much for talking through these great songs. Like we said, we'll put a track listing or playlist together on the Facebook page so you can track some of these down if you want them all in one place or are unfamiliar with any of them for whatever reason. So, cool, man. Thanks for steering some of those my way and hashing them out with me, Coulter.
Of course, no problem.
All right, again, special thanks to Coulter. Always a pleasure talking with you, man. And before we roll, we did get some contributions in email format. So if you don't mind, I'm going to dive right into those and read you a few other perspectives on this self-titled album. I do apologize. My face cold is kind of seeping out right now, but bear with me. So our first write-in was from our buddy Scott, who we've gotten to know on Instagram there. So it's good to have a full opinion from Scott here in email format. And he's going to write in about the self-titled album. Here's what Scott has to say. He says, I'm really torn on the album. On one hand, it's a raw, emotional, and impactful. On the other, it's a little too raw. It's quite possibly the closest to a live performance the band ever caught in the studio. And for that, I appreciate it even more, since I've loved every live performance I've ever seen from the band. It's also probably in the bottom 4 of their albums for me, though. I think the opener, Lost, is beautiful and a worthy opener. The energy Robert gives in his vocal performance is amazing. I hate to keep using the term raw to describe it, but few other adjectives quite capture the feel. Lyrically, who hasn't felt lost before? The urge to scream out or to rage, to not feel like yourself. It's one hell of a good song. Labyrinth is alright. It's a decent rocker, but that's about all I feel about it. Before 3, it's good. It feels, and I keep using the word feels, but that's what The Cure is for me, unbridled feeling. Like a Cure song, it feels like a Cure song for the first Cure sounding song on the album, and it won't be the last. The End of the World is a cool single. I don't have much more to say about it than that. It's basically a Cure sort of love song single. Anniversary is one of those songs that builds and builds and builds and goes nowhere. It's a skip, usually. At this point, I just feel like I'm kind of unqualified to really comment on the album because it's one that I've listened to the least, but I digress. Us or Them is another raw, live-feeling song. I think if it was produced a little cleaner with additional layers, it could be one of their more moody tracks. Instead, it just feels like a rage, which works better on songs like Shiver and Shake and Give Me It, which, though neither were overly produced, were just better overall songs. And it gets props for all the F-bombs. Alt-End is completely disposable and entirely forgettable. I had to turn it on again just to remind me of what song it was. Oh yeah, that one. Next. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with all the parentheses in this title. Song's alright though. Sounds a little more Cure as Robert hits the high notes again. The song says little though and goes nowhere. Taking Off is the most Cure song on the album, as they obviously try to recreate Just Like Heaven with an almost identical guitar riff. I mean, seriously, it feels like a complete ripoff of Just Like Heaven. But that being said, I do really dig it. Never. Ugh. The rhythmic build-up is far too much, but at least it gets somewhere. When they cut loose into the hook, it's better. Again, I dig the raw vocals and solid drums, but the rest is too corny, as in corn. Tighten up your strings, boys. The Promise tries hard to invoke the great epics like The Kiss and Cut, but just meanders. The drums are really cool, and the wah-wah pedal's in full effect, but it takes too long to get there. 4 minutes and 24 seconds of repetitive jamming before something happens, and then you're back to jamming a minute later, and then repeat. Has a solid finish, though. Probably be higher on my list if you cut about 6 minutes out of it. I haven't heard much of the additional songs yet since I just discovered their existence about 2 months ago. Pretty sad for a guy that's been a diehard fan since 1988. But overall, the album has some cool moments, but not great ones. It was a nice addition at the time of its release because I was so damn tired of alternative music at that time. I also remember it being hailed by the critics as a return to greatness for the band, which left me scratching my head because it still pales in comparison to the past greats. Hell, even the good half of Wild Mood Swings is far better than this. I'd still rather listen to this over Blood Flowers, though. I think Blood Flowers, the album that wanted to be the great one, never quite made it there. Anyway, at least it's not 413 Dream. Peace, Scott. Alright, so yeah, a lot of the opinions synced up with what we said last episode and onward as far as the individual songs. But it's funny to see how where everyone's distaste kind of varies a little bit. Like I'm feeling pretty good going towards 413. I think that's a swing back up for me, but not getting that vibe from Scott. And I'd still take Blood Flowers over this one, I think. But those slight variations, that's what makes it cool. Everyone's got their slight preferred Cure plate, if you will. So yeah, you can catch Scott. He has his own podcast, definitely worth checking out. I've heard the first couple episodes of both of these and really enjoy them and look forward to digging in more. One's called Nerds with Attitude, and the other one is a Star Wars podcast, Sarlacc Digest, and both of those can be found on iTunes. I'll put a link on our Facebook page for you to check them out too. But yeah, they sound great, and being a closet Star Wars nerd, I'm definitely on board. So thank you so much, Scott, and look forward to hearing from you more on the podcast here. The next one we got was from a fellow that goes by Weird Mountain on Instagram. He did another quickie kind of track by track, so let me read what he has to say about this self-titled album and see where that matches up with Scott and us and your opinions out there. Let's see what he wrote. He wrote, I never listened to this album until it was about 10 years old. I always thought it would stink, and maybe those low expectations going in made it end up sounding better to me. It's definitely got its moments. When I started typing this up, I didn't realize or expect to end up doing a song-by-song review, but I got listening to the whole album straight away, and that's what happened. Between the riffs and the lyrics and melody, Lost sounds like a Neurosis song, to the point where I'd love to hear them cover it if they didn't already have a song with that title. It's a strange way to open an album either way. Labyrinth feels conceptually titled in that it never really finds its way and was a poor choice to be the second song on the album. Before 3 is okay, and The End of the World makes me feel the same way songs from Wild Mood Swings makes me feel. They're not spectacular, but they're nice return to focus after Labyrinth. The Anniversary starts off with a cool atmospheric feel, but also never really goes anywhere. It's okay as a bridge type song to go through though. Us or Them is a feel that I always like from The Cure. Between the riffs and Robert screaming his head off, it's not a phenomenal song by any means, and if I was the one sequencing the album, it wouldn't make the cut. Neither would Labyrinth. I do like Alt End. It's a traditional Cure song as far as I hear it. I don't know what's going on. First of all, what's going on with the punctuation of this title? The song sounds like an afterthought and is another one that could have been omitted and might have been a stronger album for it. Taking Off is another one that would get a pretty damn solid rating, and I don't like Never, the beginning, but I like it by the end, if that makes sense. The Promise is another one that delivers something I love, which is a good, long dirge from The Cure, even if I kind of hate how the song ends. I always keep my iTunes on repeat, and I do like how the start of Lost sounds immediately after the end of Promise. And then the review ends with, my problem with this album is that it feels more like a collection of random songs than a focused album. I like the different eras and styles that The Cure has done over the past 40 years, but this album tried to cram in too many desperate, disjointed styles. It could have been a much more solid album if it were only 7 or 8 songs instead of 11. I also always find it strange when a band makes a self-titled album and it's not their first album. And this is extra weird considering how late in the Cure's career this one came out. Weird Mountain on Instagram. Well, thanks, Weird Mountain. And definitely some crossover points there, not only between us, but with what Scott just said. I think we're all in agreement that Labyrinth is a bit of a train wreck. And, but yeah, again, I've never tried the experiment of does Promise really kind of lead back into Lost? That's pretty cool if it does. Yeah, and it is weird. We talked about the self-titled thing. Like, why this album? Especially if you're going to say this is the defining Cure sound album, because this is probably the most not defining sound album by the Cure at all. So it's got to just be that reinventing idea that we came up with in the last episode. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like a real weird choice making this the self-titled album. Really should have been Lost or Going Nowhere, in my opinion, because that seems to be the review of most people's songs. These songs are going nowhere. But I guess you can't name your album Going Nowhere. So, all right. Thanks so much, Weird Mountain. All right. Again, special thanks to Coulter for always taking the time to talk with us and all those great opinions. Thank you so much, Coulter, Matt, Scott, and Weird Mountain as well. And just to wrap up this episode and all thoughts on 2004's self-titled album for now, just wanted to kind of read through you. A lot of times we ask for help on the Instagram account to steer people our way as far as sending in contributions, but a lot of people like to just chime in right then and there and say, a quick one-liner about it. So, and a special thanks to Chaz as always, but he posted that we were looking for contributions too, and this was on his portion of Instagram under his 17_seconds account. So some of the responses when asked, what do you think of the self-titled album? And sorry in advance of misreading these handles. They're like trying to read personalized license plates a lot of times. I don't know. I'm just don't get the joke sometimes, or so I'm sorry if I misread your handle names. But this one's like Shmemson, S.H. Memson, and always has funny and enlightening things to share. But in this case, he says End of the World, or I'm not even sure if it's a guy or not, I guess, but this person says End of the World was the last good song they released. Everything else on that record and the one after was unlistenable trash. What? And then Zapple3 responded, wow, no. And then he responded, it's sad, but it's true. No one is more bummed about that than me. So not a fan from here on out. Well, a fan, but not a fan of those records. So Donald chimed in. He said, I barely had any opinions on this record. We noticed. And on top of that, Jeremy Allen Gould said, it's great. So there we go. Someone that's actually for the album. It's refreshing to hear. Plastic Passion, Plastic Fashion wrote, oh God, I could go on forever about how crap it was. All Robert's fault for enlisting Ross Robinson. Ooh. And Corduroy Institute said the B-sides are the best part of the album. So hopefully you enjoyed our thoughts here on the B-sides. Jeff_Noise said, I think it's an underrated album. It's nowhere near their best, but there are some great songs on this album. Lost and End of the World are high-quality Cure songs. Basically_John, who we've heard from on the podcast, said, I've never been able to sit down and listen to this album from start to finish. I think that sums up my review. Incorrect 1976 wrote, frankly, I love the 80s Cure, innovative, one of a kind, and different. Everything they released after that era is pretty uninteresting to me. I respect, but it's not my thing. It's like another band to me, or a band trying to sound like another one in the style, and they don't fit in. Okay, fair enough. Third Uncle Records wrote, I really want to be a part of this, but I'd have to listen to the album again to really give an informed opinion. Unfortunately, that means I'd have to listen to this album again, and I just don't think I could take that kind of rejection. Ooh. Dr. Rudy Wells writes, awful cover art, so it was an automatic hard pass. I gave up on them when I heard Bloodflowers. Kmart_Goth wrote, I love Before 3, best song on the album in my opinion. I did enjoy the single too, End of the World. I like the verses a lot. Particularly love his voice at "Me, I don't show much, but it's not that hard to hide you. See?" His voice sounds a lot better though. All right, and those are all courtesy of Chaz and his Instagram account, 17_seconds. More people wrote on that because he's more popular than mine, but that's all right because he's a great guy. You should check out his Cure t-shirts at 17 Seconds Shirts at bigcartel.com too. You can find all the latest pre-orders are up there, and get them. One of a kind. You're gonna, well, not one of a kind, but you won't find them anywhere else is what I'm saying. And very cool shirts for sale there. And just a great big thank you to everybody out there listening, and we'll move on. 413 Dreams around the corner. In the meantime, subscribe on iTunes and on YouTube to get the old stuff. We're not waiting for Podcast Garden's asses to kick into gear anymore, so I'm gradually uploading all the old podcast episodes 1 through about 70 or so. By the time this comes up, I'll hopefully have a few bit more up there, so I'm just going to keep shoveling them in there. We're almost through the 2016 tour, so go relive all the early day magic on YouTube, and they're up there. Meanwhile, you can catch everything from the last year on iTunes, so subscribe on there while you can, and follow us on the Instagram. As you can see from this episode, a lot of action going down on Instagram at the Holy Hour Podcast, and 17_seconds for Chaz's. And what else? Facebook page. Yeah, this one in particular is going to have a link to all these YouTube clips so you can hear these outtake songs and stuff and know what we're talking about. So go on over to the Facebook page, like that page while you're at it, and stay in touch. You can find out little extra tidbits there, and drop me a comment through the Facebook page or directly at gavinconner@gmail.com. And feel free to send us your thoughts at any point, even if it fits in or not. We'll get to it eventually, and we got lots of great ones on the horizon, so stay tuned and talk hard.
I knew every day gets it down for sure.